Right. So this is the question that I was posed by Nicholas. Is diversification in the gin industry an aid to building consumer interest and sales, or a distraction and diversion from sales of a brand's key product? Right, are we good? Can I have a martini? Yeah? Probably not enough, okay. So I had to pick from our stable of brands to kind of decide what to talk to you about here today. As you can see, there are more than a few. There's a lot of gins, there's a lot of whiskies, and there's a sample service, which I spoke briefly and unpromptedly about earlier. I've chosen to talk to you about our two most successful gin brands, so Bathtub Gin and That Boutique Gin Company. And the answer, yes, can probably be expanded a bit further to, it depends. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. I'm going to give you a couple of case studies. Before I do that, though, I want to take a bit of a step back and talk to you about who I am and what the group does. Talk a bit more widely about who we are at Atom Brands and where we sit within the group and what each part of the group does. Now, the idea here is that with a brand owner, a distributor, and a retailer, we own basically the entire value chain from ideation, product creation, manufacture, distribution, and finally retail to the end consumer, and the gathering of insight directly from that consumer. Now, obviously, there are kind of intergroup links here. So we make the product at Atom Brands, who sell it to Maverick Drinks in the UK, who sell it to Master of Malt. This bit along the top here, though, this is the secret sauce. This is our unfair advantage. This is where we are really doing the work. And what this acts like is kind of the most powerful focus group ever. It's the most powerful and kind of direct market insight that you can get. There are obviously results that come as a result of this. And over the last few years, we've been doing okay. So our compound annual growth rate over the last 10 years has been 46%. Last year, we were the only spirits company to be listed in the Sunday Times Fast Track 100. And this year, we're off to Buckingham Palace, having won a Queen's Award for export. And again, we're the only spirits company in that list. So the question is how? You know, how have we achieved all that? Everything we do is built on two pillars. And for me, there are two things which make every product unique. There's the packaging and the liquid quality. The packaging has to make people do a double take as they walk past and want to pull it off the shelf and interact with it. But this is pretty useless if they get it back home and when they open the bottle, it's not good. So what we tend to do is we'll design the best liquid that we can and then we'll price it. And as you can see, last year, this resulted in a couple of very big awards from blind tasting competitions. We were IWSC's UK Gin Producer of the Year and the Global Spirits Masters Grand Master across all spirit categories, not just gin. So now the main question, innovation. I'm going to start by talking about Abelforth's. This is a brand containing 13 core SKUs, including one of our most recognised and successful products, which is Bathtub Gin. You can see there at the front. Now, that's a range which is kind of driven by Bathtub, and there are 6 gins in that range, including an Old Tom, a Navy Strength, a Cask Aged, a Slow Gin, and a Cask Aged Navy Strength Gin. What we're basically doing here is we're trying to amass kind of a commitment to liquid quality. All of these stand on one of our two pillars, well, both of our two pillars, really. There's the packaging, as you can see, which is unique, and then there's the liquid quality. Cold compounding is a key part of the production methodology here for Bathtub Gin. And what we're basically doing is taking a distilled gin made to our recipe, thank you guys, and post-infusing it with a subset of the original botanicals, which take well to cold compounding. And this really is the key USP for the brand. Oh, hello. So as you can see from this kind of brief timeline, we've actually, over the last 6 years, decreased the range rather than increased it. When we started out, we had a proprietary barley spirit drink, which is basically a whiskey with added pascherette, and we had a smoked vodka. And due to kind of consumer feedback, the sales of those products weren't particularly strong, so we discontinued them. So really, you know, we got the innovation out of the way on this brand early doors, and we're now focusing on education and distribution. This is a brand whose values and value lie in simple, clear messaging around great flavour, craft processes and commitment to quality. And this means that we can speak to the trade and the consumer. We can bring them on the brand's journey to discover taste and flavour. And as I mentioned, all of the brand's innovation has been done up front through, for example, the championing of cold compounding. We innovated up front, early doors with the development of Old Tom and Cask Aged gins. And actually the first sample that you're going to try now is our Old Tom. Now, the reason I've chosen for this for you to try is that it's the current best compound gin in the world at the World Gin Awards. What you should get on this, obviously, is strong juniper. There's loads of orange, there's intense cassia, there's coriander. This is kind of a classic gin, but with that additional depth added by the cold compounding. This stands up very well in a Martinez, by the way. So on this brand, we're maintaining what we call kind of an NPD light strategy. We're continuing to focus on the core messaging around what makes us different, evoking the brand's presence and using platforms to ensure continued growth and resonance. And I'm going to talk to you about a couple of initiatives we've undertaken to develop that core brand proposition and to explain to people more broadly what the brand's about. Now, this is the first initiative. It centres around the on-pack iconography. This is an extract from a deck describing to our distribution partners the process that we went through in redeveloping the core bathtub brand icon. We faced a bit of a challenge in how we represent the bathtub brand in purely visual media and on-pack, and so we set about addressing this. Having identified and deconstructed the challenge, we gave it to our in-house design team for them to work on. If I go back, you can probably see, if you look kind of here, this is what the bathtub bottle used to be like, and this used to describe the way that we would make it, very early doors, using a glass carboy, soaking the botanicals in it. And the problem that we had with that was that it didn't really work on an ongoing basis, and it didn't really speak to consumers. It didn't allow us to pull it out and use it in campaigns. So this is what we developed. We're calling this the cornucopian bathtub device. It's filled with obviously oversized botanicals to reflect the abundant flavour delivery in bathtub gin and depicted in a way which is approachable, uncomplicated, and kind of friendly, if you like. This is going to be appearing on bathtub gin bottles in the UK from July, followed by the rest of the world. And we're going to translate this into the iterations for Navy Strength, cask gauge, and other bathtub variants throughout 2018 and 2019. Second initiative that we've got is a consumer campaign. We're calling this Our Gin Starts Where Others Finish. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. It's the fact that we're using a distilled gin base to create then a further cold compounded gin. And in simple terms, what this does is it allows people to understand the process a little bit more, to understand how we're making the gin and why it's different from others. This kind of, it's an evolution, and it goes on to formally describe in simple terms our cold compounding process and all that goes into it from start to finish. And this now forms a basis of our ambassadorial training, event literature, and print and online advertising. And as you can see from this ad, core to the message is that we start with a distilled gin base and we infuse it with 6 botanicals at room temperature to derive the kind of best and most durable flavour extraction. It takes time and loads of tasting, and we then blend it back into the gin, which obviously gives it a natural tint to make bathtub gin. This is a message which we're now exporting around the world, and we're using our ambassadorial activations and distribution partners in each market to further push this message home to consumers. Now I'm going to finish up here with a quick video.
Well, it's been a long journey.
He does that, he interrupts.
Let's see if we can make the world's highest Negroni, eh? A little bit of sweet vermouth. Martini Rosso, just of course. Come on in there, you beauty. Nice ingredients. A little drop of Campari. Make it nice and bitter. Look at that view, lads. Everest Base Camp. Never thought I'd make it here. Now the most important thing of the whole lot, of course we got a little bit of bathtub gin Navy Strength, just to give it that little touch. So, after we got our gin, we've got a Campari, we've got a vermouth, we're going to need a little bit of ice, and what better than a little bit of glacial ice, just it'll fit, who cares. Try that down the bottom there. A big thank to Mr. Eric Lorenz for his spare little beautiful birdie shaker and stirring tin. Of course, while that's doing his thing, more little glacial ice. It'll fit. Look at that, like a glove, lads. We carried that bottle of bathtub Navy Strength all the way from London to Kathmandu, flew into Lukla, frightened the shit out of myself, and a long journey up through the Gokia Lakes, through the Chola Pass, and now all the way to Everest Base Camp. Mr. Tom Yao, can't thank you enough, brother. Cheers. Highest Negroni ever made. Oh yeah.
Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
Bathtub gin, maybe accomplished spirit. Cheers.
This is part of our kind of nascent accomplished spirit campaign, which we're going to be bringing out over the next few years. And this kind of echoes the brand's accomplishments in terms of celebrating the differences from others and how cold compounding brings an extra dimension to the brand. But we're also going to be rolling that out as a consumer campaign to capture people that are accomplishing amazing things and rewarding them for doing so. That video becomes a little bit more impressive if I tell you that at that point Lee was actually blind in one eye due to altitude sickness. So he still cracked on and he made a Negroni and another Negroni and then came down. So that was bathtub gin. I think we can summarise that brand strategy as kind of education, distribution, sampling, awareness. But as far as innovation goes, as far as line extensions go, not really so much anymore. The second part of this presentation is going to be about that boutique gin company. And this is a brand which recently celebrated its first birthday, and I believe genuinely epitomises innovation in gin. Oh, hang on, it's going to start playing. Right. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you more about the kind of the brand ideation at the moment, but I think if there was ever a single comprehensive representation of what this brand's about, it's this video, which apologies some of you may have seen already. Yeah, it's a gimmick. I know what you're all thinking. It did, however, take a gold medal at the Gin Masters, silver outstanding at the IWSC, so it's a good gin. For the avoidance of doubt, the Spaceflight does nothing to the flavour profile whatsoever, but all the flavour in that bottle, every single bit of the botanical flavour has been into space, and I think that's pretty cool. So we launched Boutique Gin Company in February 2017 because we wanted to create a brand where we could challenge expectations and defy convention. Our goal was to bring gins to market which would be innovative, creative and exciting. And we're often asked, especially in the case of Moonshot, what have you done that for? The answer is, well, because we can. And because it's awesome. We've got three distinct threads to this brand. One of them is own bottlings, we've got collaboration, and we've got bespoke bottlings. But all of them focus around one thing, which is just having a bit of fun. In that, we've built a team who bring that kind of collaborative brand ambition and that, that excitement to life in everything that they do. Just as important as our team are the great distilleries listed here and from around the world with whom we're thrilled to work. And they're every bit as much behind the brand's success as we are. And we're going to tell you a bit more about them in a bit. But all those guys down the bottom we're working with. Equally as important as the liquid in the bottles are the labels. Now, remember those two pillars from earlier. The product's got to stand out and it's got to make consumers want to grab hold of it. And we found a wonderful illustrator, Grace Ward, who agreed to try and draw what was initially in my head and now in the head of our kind of innovation team. I've already shown you Moonshot, but some others up here. You've got Hernot, so you've got Yun, the master distiller, fighting with David T. Smith from earlier there as to who gets to use the last piece of juniper wood. Yun wants to build a cask, David wants to fire the still, etc. We've got a chocolate orange gin up there, seeing the cacao pod wrapped in orange peel and housed in slightly shop soil packaging. Green Sand Ridge, obviously under constant assault from a well-organised and heavily armed posse of squirrels. A range of fruit gins, kind of all belonging to the same design family, which is clearly communicating their juniper base. All of this has kind of generated not only fantastic brand engagement and some exciting design award wins, but represents a strong visual kind of echo of our innovation agenda and the desire to be fun, to be honest. Of the three strands of boutique gin, we're going to talk about collaborations first. So we got talking to several of our favourite distillers, and we heard the same story time after time. And that story was about, exciting liquids that they'd made, which were either fully or partially developed, but they just hadn't released due to a lack of time to bring them to market, maybe lack of resources to develop different packaging, or concern about dilution of a brand message in an already saturated market. Now, the fact that all of these liquids were just sitting there and they were just kind of languishing, it made us a bit sad. I wanted to drink those, and I know a lot of other people that did. So we enlisted the expertise of David T. Smith. His contact details are on the final slide, and I'm sure you all know him anyway. And set him kind of amongst the world of like-minded distillers to identify those with great gins already in hand and great ideas which hadn't yet been brought to life. So I've got an example of one of those for you to try now, which is the second one in, which is Hernau's Swedish Rose Gin. It's a copper pot distilled juniper cask spirit. It's a copper pot distilled gin, which is infused with juniper cask aged spirit, which has been aged for 3 months. This won the IWSC trophy for London Dry Gin this year, so this is one of those world's bests. It's got fewer lingonberries and less meadow sweet than classic Hernau, and John Yun wanted to explore the texture of kind of cask mature gin without perhaps maturing the whole lot, hence the blending in of the spirit. I remember. Here we've got a few more collaborations which we've done with some other distilleries, some up and coming and much more kind of thoroughly established, some more thoroughly established. And if you've got a distillery or a brand and this sounds like something you'd be up for, do please get in touch with David. Again, his contact details are on there at the end. So if the first strand was collaboration, the second is own bottlings. So many of these focus on our kind of stuff on a pile of juniper motif. You can see this kind of draws upon the fact that juniper's at the core of all these gins, but we're bringing something else to it. And we've got one here for you to try, which is one of our fruit gins. It's the third one in a tray, which is strawberry and balsamico gin. Now, the theory behind this is centred very much around the kind of three-way interplay that exists between strawberries and juniper and balsamico. You've obviously got strawberries and juniper. I mean, think Pimm's, classic garnish for Pimm's. You've got strawberries and balsamico, which is a classic dessert combination. If you haven't tried it, I really strongly suggest that you do. And then you've got balsamico and juniper. And the balsamico that we use is matured in a combination of chestnut, cherry, oak, mulberry, ash, and crucially juniper woods. It's also DOP balsamico, which is Denominazione Originale Protectada. That means it retails for approximately £1,000 a litre, which is why you've got quite a small sample vial. But I mean, if you haven't tried it, seriously, you've all tried balsamic vinegar. If you haven't tried that level of DOP balsamico, please do drink it neat after you've tried the last gin. Don't drink it before you've tried the last gin, or you won't taste it at all. But it's one of the most amazing kind of complex things I've ever put in my face, including whiskey, including wine, including everything. Now, for our own recipe gins, the world really is kind of our playground. We've got gins which are unique and slightly outside the box, to put it mildly. Yuletide gin here, obviously. We've got botanicals, including whole pomanders, Douglas fir, Christmas cake, Leberkuchen, panettone, and a whole gingerbread house, because we could. We've got yuzu gin, which obviously is another one of those single botanical gins and focuses on that kind of heady, ethereal note that you get from yuzu. And we've got rhubarb triangle gin, which is made, like there are many rhubarb gins in the market. Ours uses only that which is grown in the famous triangle between Leeds, Bradford and Wakefield. Here's a bit of a slide with some of the rest of the range on it. I'm not sure why they're not all on there, but there's some more there. Now, the fourth gin that you've got on your tray, I'll have a smell of it now. Everyone have a little smell. Don't tell me your first impressions, because some of you probably know and you'll give it away. But I thought long and hard about whether to reveal this today. But there's really nothing like a bit of pressure to force a bit of a launch schedule along, which is why none of our brand management team are here today, because I told them when we're doing it. This is a subsection of that own bottlings strand, which focuses on learnings from a very closely related world to gin, which is that of perfumery. And I think where we are today, and the room we're in, obviously brings a lot of that art to life. So our head of distillation, Laura, is working closely with a very, very kind of talented lady named Lizzie Ostrom, who's an olfactory consultant. We're going to be delving deep into the world of kind of evocative scent. We've got a range of 4 gins planned initially. We've got Big Dipper, which focuses on the kind of sense and experiences which you get when you go to a fairground. We've got Dark, Dark Woods Gin, which evokes a kind of, it's hard to describe, like a sense of foreboding through the use of kind of claustrophobic, earthy forest floor botanicals. We've got Dead King Gin, which is exactly as appetizing as it sounds. It uses botanicals from the Egyptian embalming process, and that's kind of, yeah, I told you, it's out there. And then you've got the gin which you've got in front of you here, which is Fresh Rain Gin. And the idea here is that we're using 2 kind of distinct aroma compounds in here. We're using leaf alcohol, which is that kind of fresh cut grass note that you get from it. And we're also using petrichor. Now, petrichor, some of you may have heard of. It's a scent that you get just after the first rain on dry ground. And it's not something which you imagine. It's not something like, cows lying down or whatever. It's actually a chemical compound which is produced by subsoil bacteria when they kind of get woken up by the rain. We've extracted the compound that's responsible for that scent. That's called geosmin from beetroot, where it's also present. So you do get that kind of earthy, that redolent flavour, but don't worry, you're not drinking distilled soil, I promise. We have got it from beetroot. You should be able to pull that kind of ethereal earthiness out from the gin. Final thread to boutique gin proposition is Bespoke Bottlings. Now, this is a section of the business that we activated almost a year ago, and some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. It's already yielding very impressive results, but we're in quite early days, which is why you may not have seen many of them out there. The idea is that we in this instance is Liz Thomas, her details again are on the final slide, work closely with a partner, so a bar chain, restaurant, hotel, retailer, and we produce a gin in conjunction with them, which is exclusive to them, sometimes incorporates elements of their brand story, their ethos, their locale, and it's exclusive to them as well. Most of these lines are still in development and are top secret. We're working with some very big names, but we have developed one which is showable at this stage, which is a gin that we're producing for a New South Wales retailer, and it uses botanicals native to the area of Sydney, drawing on the iconic Sydney Opera House to generate recognition of the area a bit more broadly. But once you delve into it a bit and you look at the illumination on the Opera House, you can see the kind of native botanicals which we're using in that mix. We developed that with the retailer to tune in to the market. So how do we sum up boutique gin as a brand then? I think as a brand, it's definitely a disruptive innovator. As a retail proposition, it's one of the most head-turning packaging styles ever developed. And as far as liquid goes, hopefully you can see, we're only a year in, and we've already got the awards to back up the liquid quality. The only question really is how far the brand can go. We think it's global, and we're already putting in place the kind of A&P cash, the plans, the people to make that happen. So you've got 2 very different brand stories there. If we go back to the original question, which I think I can probably paraphrase as, is diversification good or bad? The answer is that really it's kind of impossible for anyone to decide that except for the brand owner. Diversification can be extremely powerful, but it can also be a distraction. And I know there's a lot of you out there, there's a lot of brand owners asking themselves if they should be driving line extensions, if they should be concentrating on getting the core proposition right or some balance of the 2. And the firm advice I'd give you is that trust your gut. You know what's right for your brand, and if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not. If you're pushing yourself to do something because you're seeing other people do it, it's probably not the right thing. The Me Too bandwagon's pretty full. And finally, these are the results from those 2 brands. Now, this is slightly confusing because on the left-hand side, we've got 9-litre cases over a 6-year period, and over on the right, we've got 50 cl bottles over 12 months. Bathtub gin's a much more mature, much more developed product, but you can see that the trajectory is there for both. And in light of some recent developments at the kind of corporate level, which 1 or 2 of you might have heard about, we're forecasting growth which actually accelerates that explosive exponential curve you can see on the left even further. So thank you for taking the time to hear me witter on. Thank you, Nicholas, for the opportunity. He's not here, that's fine. And if you're a distiller who's interested in being part of the boutique gin lineup, here are David's details. If you're a bar, restaurant, hotel, retailer who's interested in having your own boutique line, here are Liz's details. And if you want to get in touch and tell me that I should go a bit slower and not read from a script, here are mine. Thank you.